Good evening. It's a Wednesday night. It's 9 o'clock, and it is time to tin your tip with myself, Gary Dibley, and the ever capable mod master that is Mark. I must slightly confess that was ever so slightly worrying. I didn't have a clue what was going on there, and I do hope that we are in fact broadcasting to YouTube. That was only set up after last week's show, so we hope it's working. We can but try. I know it's certainly made a big difference to sort of the processor speed and this and the other this end, so it can only be good, hopefully. Yeah. If it fails, I've got a clue. I mean, Dave Dorm is in Switzerland. He's probably half legless right now with Mr. Kitson, and I doubt whether they're in any way, shape, or form, gonna jump in and bail us out. So it is what it is. So if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Good. What have we got lined up for you this week? This week I have a look at that, the abomination, as I am going to call it, that was the Wii mod, the one that Kerry got from where'd you get it from? eBay. You paid good money for it, and there was not a hope in hell that little bugger was taking any sort of battery. You'll see that coming up, but we sort of get it we do get it working at the end, and we'll go through the process of what we did, and hopefully a little bit about what not what to do. Mark is a very good a good video this week. I am definitely going to be having a bash at one of these. It's made me want to go out and buy threading tools. He's showing us how to make a little rig that will sort of you can do calls with it, so it can do a single call, dual call, this, that and the other. A lot of thought gone into this, and you can see that through the process. Let's crack on, and speaking of thought process, the first video sort of explains a little bit about that. Let's crack into our first video from Mark, and then one from me, and we'll pop back after that. Catch you in a bit.
Now this week I'm going to try at least to take you through the making of my coiling jig. I say try because I've had more failures than successes, to be honest. It's been a steep learning curve about this. That's what I'm going to try and show you. I thought it would be a good idea to show you a bit through of the thought or design process of what I go through to get to that point. The first one, things like size is important. How big do I want it to be? As you'll see, that's around about 60 millimeters long in diameter by about 45 depth. But I've gone through a few different sizes. I thought 50 depth would be 50 millimeters long would be better to start off with, possibly even 70. I've tried all three, and currently I might make all three of those actually at some point. But materials as well are important, wood or plastic. You see a couple of failures here. You see that's still got a drill bit embedded in it, because that's snapped. I've snapped perspex quite a bit. I had it wander, as you've seen in previous videos. So I've decided that's not the material I want to be working with. And then, even with the wood, I've had failures where it's wandered and come out, or even where I've wandered going in because it hasn't been perfectly straight when I've drilled it, and they've impacted on each other. So there's actually a core going all the way through. So you need to think when you're going to make something like this of what you want it to do, what size it needs to be. In case for mod, what sort of battery do you want? Do you want it VV, do you displays, things like that. All these things need to be thought about before you even start to do anything. And when you've got a plan, you have to be prepared to change it, because that was the original coiling jig I ever made. That was the prototype. with a hole in it for the posts. It's just a simple closure, but that's not very pocketable, to be honest. I thought about a flap, but again it didn't look very good, so I skipped that idea and went with the screws instead. And then I went through choices with screws. That was the original one I was going to go with. That's a nylon thumb screw, but that, as you'll compare to this, is rather large. I thought it was too big for what I wanted, so I've ended up going with a smaller 16mm M5 bolt, which seems to work rather well. And there's a 6mm bolt on each of these side holes, which hold your various rods. So that's the bit where I'm starting from. So I'll make a 60mm one to start off with. The first thing I've learnt through bitter experiences, I won't be drilling any pilot holes in this, because every time I've tried to drill a pilot hole through this, it's wandered and come out of the sides. I've had much better success just drilling the initial holes. So the first thing I want to do is mark off a midpoint down the length of this. And this would be much easier if I wasn't trying to do it on camera. So I've marked off on one side a point 1.5 centimetre, 50mm in from the end, and that's going to go for the single hole, which will go the length this way. And on this side I've marked one 5mm in from the end and 2.5mm in, and they'll run from this side down that way, and hopefully if I get it right they won't meet. No chance of finding. So that's the first holes I'm going to have to drill. So I'm going to do a 4.2mm drill bit, which is the recommended size for an M5 threading. So first thing I need to do is make sure I line up the point exactly. I'll try and get this as square as possible. Regularly I need to back out the drill bit and clear away any debris to make life a bit easier when you're drilling, because there's such a long depth on this. This would be a lot easier with a good drill press and clamp, but I do not own either. So as I'm holding in my hands and I'm making sure that my fingers are along the line of where it's drilling, so I can feel if it's going to burst through the wood, because the wood being soft you can feel the drill coming towards it, so I know to stop if it does that. And when I've drilled, I see I've drilled the entire length of that drill, because I know that up to about there is around about 44-45mm, which is the length I need, hence why I hadn't marked out previously. Now I need to repeat on the other side. This is where it gets a bit trickier. And that's 2 successful holes, just the third to go.
Right, so we're back in the room once again, and we did say we were going to have a look at this, which is the Wii controller that somebody purchased from eBay, and they were a little bit displeased with it, as you can see. It struggled to even get a battery in there. Now, I've opened this up and had a look down inside, and basically it's going to take a bleeding miracle to get all that epoxy. I thought there was loads of epoxy in there. There is. In terms of being able to do anything with this, it's going to be an absolute pain in the bum. So in terms of modding it into something else. Now the biggest problem is a battery doesn't fit. The other problem is, now I don't know if you can see the soldering on the switch and stuff, it's not that good. What we're going to do with it, I think if we can get it to take a battery, it's just this spawn of the devil stuff that Mark favours everywhere in there. It is just absolutely bloody horrible. Oh God, what more can you say, really? It's just, it's hideous. I'm half thinking, is it, I suppose if we can get it to take a battery and it works, the owner has at least got a working mod and try and tidy it up a bit and this that, and the other. But in terms of getting that switch out, without totally buggering the case, there is no chance of that whatsoever. Most definitely not a hope in hell. So, oh Christ, where'd you start with this thing? The biggest problem is when this is back together, and it's always difficult when you're looking at someone else's mod. That is just hideous. It really is bad. We're going to have to probably backfill this with something. Now, if we can get it working, if we can get a vape out of it, then happy days. We'll try and tidy it up a bit, but I can't see it being that simple, to be honest with you. It's just terrible. Right. Think, Dibbly, think. The biggest problem is this pos pin down in here. Now I've got my iron heating and I've got some solder, so I'm just going to start. I'll take that out to start with, see where we can go with that. I mean, it's not exactly great, as you can see, but I'll see if I can get some pliers on there and work upside down and get this lead off. Ow, that hurt. Right, there's that off. The other thing we've got to try and do now is get that ring out that they've welded and heated in there somehow. And hopefully, excuse for a pos pin, which is in fact a nut, just isn't going to work. Now hopefully I should have a bit more free flow for a battery now to go in there. Not much though at all, but let me just see. See, it's just, that's got to come out. Do you know what, it's not even bloody working with that in, and that's definitely making a contact on there. Sorry, I'm all over the shot. Oh, okay. So it will work. Okay, but the LED isn't working, I don't think. Was that working? No, so the LED's not working, but as you can see, we've got some work to do in here to actually get a battery to fit. Now, we're going to have to do some jiggery pokery with the case and try and get that in. So first thing first, we want to make this try and get a comfortable fit of a battery. There are a lot of things that are impeding that, which I've got the little Dremel set up. What I'm going to do, I'll have a little play around, cut some bits out, pop back into hopefully that case. See that? I'm just going to take the LED completely out of the equation. I think completely out of the equation. It is absolutely pointless having that there, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, some people might like it, but it's just not working. It's silly, and it's gone. It's just confusing issues. Pointless having it there. Yeah, you might like an LED and this, that and the other, but let's just at least try and get this bloody thing vaping of some way, shape or form. Okay, let me pop away. I'm gonna get a you don't want to see me hollering out with a saw. Saw? It's not even a saw, it's a chisel. It's not, it's a file. It's a file. I'll be back in 2. I've been filing a bit, and now what I'm doing, I'm just trying to manipulate some of this plastic down in here with a with an iron, and then just giving it a tidy up with a file. Now, if you've just joined us, this isn't anything I've made. We're trying to get this to work, and I think we're gradually getting to a point now where you might comfortably be able to get the battery sat in there. It's just, I've got to take down this bottom section, right, this bit here. I mean, we've sort of tidying it up as we go, but I need a lot more filing on this section down in there. To be honest, there was not a hope in hell that a battery was going to fit in here. Not a bleeding hope now. I'll carry on whittling away, and we'll come back in a bit.
And there we go, we are back in the room once again. You can obviously see my love for that mod was so great. We give it good compliments. The one thing is, I think it was mentioned in chat, wouldn't it be awful if that was somebody who was watching Tin Your Tip? If that was the case, then please learn from watching the remedial job, because that was shocking, unfortunately. You really shouldn't be selling something like that on eBay. We'll be back after the ads. There's not much to add to that, to be honest with you.
Liberty Flight sponsors Tin Your Tip with Gary Dibley. iVapour and iVapour Elixir, based in Yorkshire, for your e-cig needs. That's iVapour.co.uk and iVapour-elixir.co.uk. iVapour and iVapour-elixir.co.uk, proud sponsors of VapourTrails.tv. Liberty Flight sponsors 10-year tip with Gary Dibley.
And there we go. Those adverts go too quickly. Barely enough time to run into the house and do anything. Got halfway through the door and thought, sod it and come back. Yeah, I mean, I'm not dissing it totally. Maybe. But if you are going to make something like that to sell, please at least make sure it takes a battery first. Because I don't care what anybody says, fundamentally a mod, if you're selling it, should have the capacity to take a battery. I would have thought that would have been one of the foremost requirements of a vaping device. I'll say no more than that, but let's crack on and get on with Mark's next little bit for his little coil turny gizmo-y thing.
To save a bit of time, since I finished drilling that one, I've also drilled most of the way through this one. I'm pretty sure this is a pretty boring shot to be watching. And hopefully that should be that finished off now. So, what you now have is two holes drilled through the length this way and one through the length the other way. Next job is going to be to test this out, so I need to thread these holes. So I've got an M5 thread here. And it's just going to be a simple matter of working a thread into this. Doesn't need to go in too far because it's only a 6mm bolt I'll be putting into the hole. In wood, it's very easy to thread. It's more than enough. You just need to be a bit gentle when you get to the end, taking it off. You don't want to mess up your thread at the very beginning. And I just need to grab one of these bolts. Test the threading, that's fine. And I believe this. That is the rod I'm going to be using pretty much, so if I pop that in and test threading the bolt on, that threads all the way down and it doesn't rattle around too much. So that's one success. I shall thread the rest now. So I've gone ahead and threaded the two of these. So if I pop that one in there, test this one out. That fits nicely in there. Ideally, if you could get the perfect length, you could do it so that when you screw this bolt all the way down, it jams that post in place so you wouldn't get any rattle, but getting that sort of accuracy is not so easy. And once you've threaded it, it's much more difficult to try and drill out a bit more. So that's those holes finished. And you may be wondering why I've done it in this order. I drill these holes first and not the ones for holding the wire in the posts. That's because if this thing was going to go wrong, it's when I'm drilling the full length of here. That's where I've had drills snap on me because of carelessness. I've had it wander or whatever. So now the first thing I do is those. That way if there's a complete failure, I haven't lost that much work, is it? Experience teaches you the order to do things pretty much. Now the next job on the list is to drill out the other two holes, which are going to be the ones that really do all the work. So for that I've marked out a depth slightly over 16mm, probably 17mm, because the bolt that goes through here needs to go in at least 16mm if I want it to sit flush like this when it's not in use. So again, no pilot holes. So I just need to be very accurate. And get the drill as central as possible to where I want it. And take my time drilling. I think this is where a good cordless drill with a good variable speed trigger really comes into its own. You've got so much more control over fine drilling rates. That's your two most awkward holes done. Well, next two most awkward, I should say. Next I want to drill a pilot hole through here to start off with. In fact, one will only be a pilot hole. And these need to be, from experience I've found, 13mm down. Seems to work best for both of them. So I just mark out the point. And both of those are 13mm. You can very easily go now. I could, if I wanted, just drill these halfway through. But I won't, because I want these to be dual coilable. As you'll see later on, you needed to go through all the way. Now, one of these holes needs to be around about 6mm wide to hold the posts easily. The other one can stay at just the pilot hole size, because you're only going to be putting one or two thin pieces of wire through there. So pick one. It doesn't really matter which one you pick, because you can use the unit either way around. So if you're left or right handed, it won't matter. So I'll just use this step drill bit. And that's it all the way through from that side. But because it's a step bit, I need to go back through from the other side.
Okay, I've got it to a position now where I can get a battery in. And it will sit there quite comfortably. Blah blah blah. It just needed a bit more work, if you are the maker of this particular mod, to get the battery to fit, as you can see. Just needed to take a net more off. Now, hopefully, what I'm going to do, rather than a bloody great nut, is then use a one of these little nibbles, and hopefully should be able to get that mounted down in there, drill a hole through the cavity, and it should sit in there nicely. I say that, but there was a problem. I just tried firing it again, and it was intermittent. And we've spoke about this in the past, that soldering onto a switch. If you're going to solder onto a switch and you apply lots and lots and lots of heat, basically this thing was hanging on by a thread because that's the prong that should be in the switch. The only thing that was holding that in was a tiny bit of epoxy over the top of it. So it's now looking like we've got to try, whereas we didn't want to, try and crack out this switch. It could all go wonky here, because this stuff is bloody awful. So I'm going to have to crack away and see if I can get it out. Now, it's not ideal, this, I tell you, not ideal at all. And it's just bloody ridiculous. Oh. You know, when you just think, yeah, I mean, the soldering down on that is shit. I mean, it's bad. It's, you start to think, is it worth even bothering trying to make this relatively usable? But we'll give it a bash. We will most definitely give it a bash. Now I'm just chipping away at lumps of stuff here. At least I've got possibly a usable wire coming off the Atty. Now I've got a lot of swearing coming, because God only knows if I can get this switch out. I'm going to have to try and be a bit brutal with it, and I'm probably going to end up mullering the switch in the process, but we just got to try and free up, you can't see subtle, free up some of this this epoxy around it. See if I can crack some of it out without mullering the case. And Mark, this is why I hate Spawn of the Devil stuff. Definitely not made to last, this type of thing. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go away, get a fammer. I had a bloody great one somewhere. I'm going to try and knock this back through the other way if I can. Actually, let me just try doing that way. No, I need the correct tool for the job, and I ain't got one. What can I use? Come on, Dibbly, be inventive. Obviously only using tools the way that they're intended to be used. More work needed. I'll be back in 2. Okay, not being happy with the use of incorrect tools and stuff, I basically I drilled the switch out. It was in there so bloody solid with that stuff. It was incredible. I hate this stuff. But in drilling it out, I'm going to have to reach across the camera and put in one of these tiny little switches that will fit back down in, and it will still poke through and operate. Best of a bad job, this one, really. Like I say, unfortunately, or not, well, fortunately, I didn't make this, but we're trying to get it working. So what I'm going to do is glue the switch in. I'm going to drill a hole through here, because I've got my little battery terminal here, and let me just show you what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to feed it from the back, so essentially I need to tin up a bit of wire, and I'm just going to try and get that on the top of this, sort of upright. And in the middle, Dibbly would help. So I can feed that essentially straight through now on a hole there. And then I'm going to glue this stuff together. I'm going to get the switch glued in, and I'm going to get this glued in. And what I'll do to do that, once the hole's in, I'll be able to pull that tight through, put a battery on to pressure that up. And the stuff that I'm actually using, rather than super glue, is this stuff. It's called Zappa Gap, and it's a medium CA in viscosity. Now, I've been using this stuff a lot with the wood, but it is basically, it will stick anything to anything. It's far better than your standard super glue. It's quite a bit more expensive. It's about £6 for a tub of this size, but not bad when you consider, you know, it's £5 for a you know, one in B&Q or something. Far superior stuff. You can get this from Axminster, and it is really, it goes off very, very quickly. You can get it in different setting times, etc, etc, but this one will set in probably about 10 seconds, and you've got a bit of time to play, and then normally leave it for sort of another 10 minutes, and it is absolutely rock solid. So I'm going to be using that to put the switch into the existing Spawn of the Devil epoxy, and to fix this. So I'm just going to go away and drill up, and I'll get that fixed in, and then I'll pop back. I'm sure you don't want to see me drilling. I'll back into it.
And there we go, we are back in the room once again. Yes, I may have mentioned a few times about the mod and I didn't make it. We're fixing it. Yeah, Zappa Gap, good stuff that. Absolutely, it is. I'll tell you what, that stuff can stick anything to anything, and I'm not joking. You know, I've used the super glue before, and obviously you've seen us use it, and you can sort of tack your finger and get away with it on certain stuff. I was doing something with some wood the other day, and I held my finger on a bit too long, and it was properly stuck there. It was one of those. It was exactly how you would expect, you know, super glue to behave. I've never actually been stuck to something more solidly than I did when I used that stuff. You've got to be very, very careful when using that, but it is good. It comes in three different sort of thicknesses. You can get a thin one, which basically has got a very, very, very quick setting time, something like 2-3 seconds. The medium one goes up to about 10 seconds, and then you can actually get a thick one that goes off a lot slower, probably around about 20 seconds. And they do a little sort of spray that you can actually spray on to accelerate that if you need something set in instantly. But it's very good stuff, and extreme. It's probably the best super glue type product I've used in a very long time, and it does its stuff. I've been using it a lot with making pens, and you have to insert a sort of a tube through the core of either wood or acrylic, whatever you're working with, and it does a very good job if you over drill ever so slightly one end or t'other end, or you get sort of a blow through, it will fill that gap, hence the name Zappa Gap. It is unfortunate, but we have to live with that. Let's go into our first little air break. We'll pop back very shortly after this. No, second, time's going so fast. Second air break.
Liberty Flight sponsors 10-year tip with Gary Dibley. Dirty Flight sponsors 10-year tip with Gary Dibley.
And there we go. We need to crack on rather rapidly. Let's go into Mark's last bit. Where we see the finished product, the finished sort of spinny, whirly, coily thing. It's good. Impressed with that one. I'm going to have a bash at some point. Watch he's back. And then we finish off the Wii remote that, if I didn't say so before, had nothing at all to do with me apart from fixing it. See you in a bit.
Now I am going to slightly bevel the edge out over to make life a bit easier for myself on both sides. That's more just for my benefit than anything else. And pretty much that's most of the work done. Can now remove all the masking tape. And just need to add some threading to these now. So because I've thought ahead and made all the bolts the exact same threading, it's just a simple matter of using the same threading tool. But this time I need to work all the way through the length of the hole. As it's wood, it's very easy to work through. That's about as far as I can go with that. And actually test it with the bolt I'm going to be using. And that goes all the way down flush, and the bottom of the bolt is pretty much level with the bottom of this hole. So it means whatever I put through there, it's going to grip it pretty much. Just need to repeat the process for the other hole. So that's the second bolt threaded into place, so that's basically the unit completed. All that's really left to do now is a lot of sanding basically. It's sand off all the sharp edges, make sure there's no splinters, clean off anything like that. Sand it down and maybe add a bit of linseed or stain to finish it off. And one thing I should mention at this point in time, which I completely forgot to do earlier, is mention my surprise at how well this one's gone. I haven't had a single mishap with this, it's went perfectly. So I'm rather pleased with this one. It gives me hope for making more, I think. The only other component that you need is the rods to go through the coil onto. These are 2 and 3 millimeter. I think they're used as axle rods on motors, things like that. It's 74 millimeters long and either 2 or 3 millimeters in diameter, so you just cut them in half with a Dremel or a hacksaw or whatever. Smooth off the edges, make it nice and safe, and you're done. And basically that's what you'll end up with. So to use this, you just select the size rod that you want, back off the screw and pop them through Ideally what you want is one coming through from each side, like so, if you're going to dual coil. And you screw them into place, and that will hold them in, like so. But for today I'm just going to do a single coil to show you. Pop it away. Just tighten down this rod. Then with whatever particular wire you're going to use. In case I've got a 0.25mm counter, I'll just stick that through the hole so it comes out the other side. Screw it down. That's the wire trapped in place. And if I was dual coiling, I'd have the second rod come out of here and I'd put a second length of wire going through from that side at the same time. But just for a single coil you just need to go through a single side. Take it up to the post and just start wrapping your coils around. Like so. That's all your coils done. And you just push it down. You've got the coil the size you want. Quickly release the 2 screws. And there you've got a coil ready to go. You can leave it on the posts so it's easier just to pop into whatever you're going to be coiling, whatever you're going to be recoiling in. And then you just snip off the wire as that to the size you want and just coil away. Very easy, very handy. So it's in this form, it makes a nice pocketable device. And of course, it's up to you what size posts you have. As long as they're smaller than 5mm in diameter, you should be good to go.
Right, so I've got my little switch in there. Now, new little switch, and we've got a battery housing. It all needs cleaning up ever so slightly, but now we're on to the innards, shall we say. Just linking back the other switch, and as you see, I've had to put a bit of epoxy around there just to hold that in place. Because we've taken the LED out of the equation, it should be a simple case now of trying to get this the wire that was existing just pop down on one side of the switch. Do you know what, this has been horrible, this thing. Like I say, nothing that we made, but we're trying to get it sort of functioning again. And I just need to get a bit on it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come up right about there. I'll just snip that off. Yeah, sorry if you can't see what the hell we're doing, but I'm just trimming back the wire which is going to our new POS connector that actually fits. Ow, I keep forgetting the thumb's healing, but it's got a right gooey spot in the middle. You went deep. It's amazing how quick it heals. It healed all around the outside, but obviously I went down that way. And soggy spot in the middle. Let's just tin up that. And we'll pop that round onto our switch terminal, and I'll just bang that one back on. So effectively that should theoretically be it. It should be functioning. Now what I'm going to have to do, let me just snap all this back together. That's probably going to be harder than he says, But it needs a good bloody clean up and a good blah blah blah, and I need to work out which bits go where. But theoretically now I'm going to have to do something in the bottom of here to hold this battery when it goes in, but to hold it up, but it now slots in so much easier. And I'm just going to build up a base layer once I've got all this sort of screwed back together and working. Hopefully if I switch that back on the top, before my battery stays in place. Working nicely. The biggest problem with this was you couldn't get a bloody battery in it. If you're going to sell a mod that you can't put a battery in, it's a bit pointless. I'm going to just see if I can get this case back together, and then what I'm going to do is fire up the glue gun. I'll layer this down to a level that it needs to be at to hold all this in place. Now I just need to get these wires out of the way, because that's what's stopping me getting that case back together. I'm not 100% happy with this. It could have been a lot nicer. I was hoping to get something else in it in terms of a you know, a board or something, but it's just it's terrible. It really is bad. It wasn't nice at all to start with. The ATI connection is still wonky. There's not much we can do with that. If anything, this should be a lesson as how not to make one, rather than the remedial works, we're going to call it, on this. But at least now the person who's bought this can actually use it in the way that they purchased it to be used, which is with a standard battery. Let me pop away. What I'm going to do is get this screwed together, get a layer in there nicely. I'll come back when we're building up the epoxy. Okay, so hopefully we're done. I've layered the bottom because when the battery, when this housing was shaped out, that it would actually fit a battery, and that was part of the problem with this mod to start with. It just wouldn't take a battery, no matter how hard you tried. I've sort of shaped the epoxy in the base there to be roughly battery size. So now when we pop our battery in, it sits in that epoxy. And when you pop your top thingy back on, it's not going to rattle around, it's not going to go anywhere. So we'll clag our little dripping ATI on the top, and unfortunately, because it's ever so wonky, the drip up. I mean, the function was, the main aim was to get it running. At least there's some use of it. I did want to put a VV board in it, but it just wouldn't, it wouldn't have it. There was so much epoxy and stuff in there. But at least now, with a little dripper on, and a standard battery, it ain't half that bad, to be honest with you. At least it's working. Yeah, so unfortunately not exactly what we wanted to do, but a fix nevertheless. So there is our, it's not ours, I'm taking no credit for that one, but here is a remodified wick controller. Right, very quickly, next week I've been sent one of these by Git. He sent me his mod. Now this is a little squonky doofer-darvar thingy with a little switchy, as they do, and a battery thingy goes in there. Why have I got this, and why has he even let me anywhere near it? The dripping ATIs or the ATIs that he wants to use with this, he's telling me the majority of them are 16mm. So we're going to be on the lathe next week, and we're going to be attempting to make a new dripping well, getting it all fixed in, if you like, a jet black acrylic. So I've got to get a bit of a bigger thing, and it wants about 16 mil something ish in the middle. So we're going to try and do a bit of precision engineering on the wood lathe, which should be fun. And hopefully get a new toppy thing in here so it can take 16 mil atties. I don't know what that is in there at the moment, but yes, that's where we're going next week. I will see you in a bit. Back to me in the studio. And there we go. See, squonking, or I think that was it. That was the word I was looking for. Yeah, basically, hopefully next week I've ordered some bigger blanks in size wise, and I've got to get a new drill bit. We're hoping to make a new top for that with a 16 mil inner diameter that he can put his 16 mil squonky doofer atties in. Simple. Yeah, like I say, I haven't got a clue, so we'll play as we go. It's all going to be done by hand on the wood lathe, so that could be interesting. Yeah, basically, what have we got coming up? Tomorrow is Thursday night. Now, as you may have seen, Dave is actually away. He is probably half cut at this moment in time, laughing his head off at the live thingy with the YouTube and my panic face, in Switzerland right now. So he's not going to be around tomorrow. Keep an eye on the updates on the site. Is very, very unlikely that something will happen, but if it does, it will be broadcast there. Round to Sunday, and Mr. Kitchener's there. I don't think Dave will be with him, but he will be there. Tuesday, we've got Marco and then DE Talk. Yeah, what have we got coming up? Wednesday, oh, it's us again. We'll be here. I'll be doing what I just said. And Thursday, again, we're not sure whether Dave will be back or not, but there may be something in place next Thursday. It all rolls on. And as the week goes on, obviously RY4 Radio are running live every single night, so don't forget to tune into those guys too. I think I am just about very, very, very close, and let me just check. Yes, running close to time. Once again, it has been emotional. And we will see you next week. Don't forget, if there's stuff that you want to see, let us know. If there's something you want modded, repaired, let us know. We'll gladly do it on the show. If it's material, it's material. It's all good stuff. With all that said, it's time for me to say goodnight, and thank you very much once again for Mark for putting his bits forward. Stunning mod once again. Catch you next week. Cheers, guys. Good night.
Liberty Flight sponsors 10-Year Tip with Gary Dibley.